was like, okay, now it's literally, I'm just on my own. And I had this job at Savers, and I hated it. I hated it in the beginning. I hated it.
I really think you hated that.
Yes. But I kept going because I needed work ethic. I needed some work references because I didn't have any. I'd be like, okay, I'll fill out this job application, work references. I ain't got nothing.
Nothing that
Do
you
I lie?
There.
Right. Do I lie? No, you don't lie. You just tell them like you had kids, or I always made up excuses. Well, I was just out having kids. Who does that?
Stay-at-home mom.
Stay-at-home mom, but I'm a single mom, so really? So I kept going to work, and I stayed there for a long time, and eventually I actually started liking that job, and I actually built relationships with people there, and like they taught me things like work ethics and responsibility, and they could depend on me, and like when I tell them that I was going to do something, I did it.
What?
Right. And they knew that like I was dependable, and that was what was so cool, is that I built this relationship, and when I wanted to leave there, they're like, we already knew, Ange, you were going to leave here eventually and go into work with women who are like you, so it's okay. And I was like, you remember that from my job interview? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, all right. So I'm meant to go work with people like me, So I did. I got the gift of working at Journey Home for this. It was like almost 2 years, and it was amazing. I learned so much about myself and the women that I wanted to work with, and like my coworkers, and like just so many things. And I felt like Savers gave me a foundation to work with women too, because I worked with pretty much all women at Savers, and that was weird for me because like I didn't even have any friends that were women, because I didn't trust them and I didn't believe.
I don't.
Because that's not what you do in addiction.
No.
Because men were my ally.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I don't even know what they were. But women were my enemy.
Oh, for sure. And you see a lot of that.
Yes, right? You really do.
Because and they steal blankets.
Yeah. Listen, if I ever run into that guy, I'll be like, listen, I need to make it. He's on my amends list.
Yeah. That blanket got you through some stuff.
I wouldn't give him back the blanket, but I might buy, I might buy him a new blanket. But he's on my amends list. But I built friends in the rooms of women, and I could rely on them, and they could rely on me. And it was because I worked, so many different things. I wanted to work on myself. I wanted to build relationships with women. I didn't want male friends. I didn't get into a relationship. That was a key piece. I did not get into a relationship. Should I say it again?
Yeah. So
no relationships.
So you broke the cycle.
Yes.
Because that was your pathway back. Okay.
Yep. I felt like I needed a man in my life. And so, but there was only one man I wanted to be with anyway, and that was the twins' dad, and he wasn't ready to have recovery. And so to me, it was easy because I couldn't have him, and I wanted to build this relationship with myself and with my kids. So it was easy for me to be like, no. And I wanted to have people in my life that I could rely on that were women, that I wasn't very good at doing that. So I wanted to build that. And so that's what I did, And I didn't get into a relationship. And I just kept moving forward. Like I had bad days, but I just kept moving forward, and eventually, so I left Domus, and like a couple months after leaving Domus, I literally was like, you got to take care of your son, Skylar. Now this angry little boy, whose father was going back to prison again, who he was now with his father at the time, was so angry. God, he was so angry. He was this 14-year-old angry fester, okay? Because, again, his roller coaster and his ball has dropped again. Now you got to take care of him because you're better, and that's your job. And I got this two-bedroom apartment, not figuring that I was not going to have my other kids for a little while. Well, I would never say no. So I did. I took Skylar. But he was so angry. So angry, so depressed. Didn't know who he was. Still struggles, And we went nose to nose. Like, kids get bigger. So this little runt that I could just backhand, like, now he's taller than me. And I'm like, okay, all right, we're good. And he, like, yells like his mom. And so I had to learn different parenting techniques with him because he was so used to me yelling. And that was just the pattern that built this angry thing inside of him that I was like, all right, I got to figure something else out. And I don't know if I did a good job with him because I feel like I parented him a lot out of guilt, and I gave him whatever he wanted. And now I'm like, no, work for it at 19 years old. And sometimes he's like, well, what do you mean? Why aren't you going to help me? I need help. And I'm like, no, like, you got to figure it out. But 4 years into my recovery, my kid's dad, my twin's dad, Matt, he was ready to find recovery. And it was a really weird story. I got done with a meeting. And he had come every now and again to my house and was like, hey, can I just stay here for the night? And I don't know if he was using or not, or if he hadn't been using for a couple days. He'd always seemed like he was high because his mental health was crazy. And I was like, he pulled in behind me, and he rolled on the window and he's like, can I come upstairs? And I was like, no, not tonight. And there's this piece of me that was like, I don't even know what was going to happen, but at that moment, I knew it wasn't the time to let him come upstairs and stay with the kids because it was just this revolving thing, And that night, he got put in jail. It was April 1st.
So he left there and then...
Yep, he got pulled over. Literally, pretty much maybe a mile down the road. And then he called me from jail, and he was like, I need help. Will you help me? Will you support me? Will you be there for me? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I knew that that's what he needed and that's what we needed. And now we're together. And I wouldn't... Yeah.
What a God.
Yeah. Like, we are such a good mix for each other that we don't really fight.
I know, that sickens me.
I'm sorry. But we just don't. Like, there are certain things that we argue about. My other kids, maybe. Because he didn't want me to parent him out of guilt anymore.
How dare he?
Yeah.
Right.
What's the thing?
And I was like, fine, but they're my kids. And he's like, yeah, you're right, but these are my kids. And I'd be like, but okay, fine. And so we had to come to that understanding, yeah, we're together. We own a home and we live this beautiful life. And sometimes I'm like, pinch me, what is happening? Almost 8 years in recovery, and like my life is very full. I'm living the American dream without the alcohol. And I say that because literally people are like, oh, I'm living the dream. And I'm like, no, you're not, because you're drunk. But I don't live my life that way, So my oldest son was in and out of placements through his teenage years because my mom was like, hey, I can't do this. He's crazy. He's been through so much trauma. His mental health is really struggling. I'm going to send him away. And that was literally the only thing she could do. And so they raised him and tried to give him good ethics and morals at the time because I didn't give him any, And by the time he was 18, we started to, and I went to go see him when I could, but we started to kind of build this relationship. And now we have an amazing relationship. He's doing okay. I think he goes to treatment in a couple days because probation has caught up with him. And all these things have always caught up with him because, he lives this life. He lives that lifestyle that I lived, Mm-hmm. And then I have a daughter, my beautiful, amazing, my 13-year-old daughter, who I didn't speak to her or see her for 5 years. And she lived just down the road. I knew where she went to school. I knew some of her friends. But I just wanted her to be okay. I just wanted her to not, because she was 4. So there was a piece of her, a piece of me that was like, maybe my lifestyle didn't affect her. Maybe she doesn't remember. Maybe she will have great morals and ethics. And Jane and Steve did an amazing job with her. Like, I'll just shed a few tears for a second. I'm so grateful for them. I never was ever mad at them. Like, I've had words with them, that I probably could have been like, insert foot, Angie. God. Like, damn it, why did you say that? Because by the time I was ready to go back to court to see her, like, I needed a foundation. I needed to have good work ethics. I needed to have my apartment for a couple of years. I needed these things because I knew that I was going to fight a battle in court. And, like, if I didn't have a leg to stand on, they'd be like, no. Yep. Like, we've done this with you, Angie. This is what you're good at. You think you're doing okay because you say you're doing okay, but none of your actions. Yeah. Oh. My action didn't line up, So I needed the action. So when I finally did take him back to court, I fought for a while to just get visitation. And they were like, nope. And I know they did that not because they didn't want me to see her, but because they wanted to make sure that I wasn't going anywhere. And that I was going to continue to fight. And because to them, that was their little girl. And you're going to be worthy of being in her life. And I'm going to make sure of it.
Right.
And God bless their soul.
Yeah.
Really. Like, they are amazing people. They have given my daughter these amazing morals and ethics. And now I have her. Like, she lives under my roof at 13 years old. Sometimes I'm like, what did I get into? Kind of a thing.
Every once in a while, she's under my roof.
Yeah, every once in a while, she's under your roof, and sometimes she's under yours, But I'm grateful. Like, I'm grateful that I get to have her. This, this pandemic happened, and I had been seeing her. And I remember the day that, Jane called me and was like, hey, do you want to take her overnight? And I was like, what? Like, what? Really? Yeah? And it was amazing. And, like, that was where it started. And, like, the pandemic happened, and Jane has some health issues. And so, like, it was better for her to be at my house. And then it got to the point where, like, this is where Mary Beth wants to be. And they get to watch from afar her grow up and be a part of her life. Because, like, I've told them from the beginning, like, I will never take her from you, ever. Because she calls them mom and dad, and that is her choice, But I get to be a part of, and me and Matt get to play the role of mom and dad too, and that's what's so cool. So, I have Mary Beth under my roof. Jaden and Skylar don't live under my roof. They got to figure that out, and I have the boys under my roof, and, like, I get to raise these little boys, and they don't know what it's like. They don't know. Sometimes, like I said before, like, Jaden will come over and they'll be cocking off or saying something stupid, and Jaden's like, you have no idea.
What?
You have a perfect upbringing. Like, really? Like, you don't know that, Mom. Don't bring her out. You have no idea. Like,
she has some John McEnroe backhand.
There's a piece of me that I think, at first, for a while, like, I think Jaden was jealous because they didn't.
Rightfully so.
Right? Yeah. Right, Jaden and Skylar. But they're so grateful that their brothers never have to see that. They get something that they were never gifted, but that they get to be a part of, I don't know, like, build a foundation. Whatever support network you need to have in your life, build it. Home, health, community, purpose. I mean, really, that's what I say in that's what recovery is to me, right? So I have a community of people that I can rely on, no matter what. I have a home that I can call a home, and I have a purpose. I have a purpose to be this person in my life, to be a mom to my kids, and I have home, health, purpose. Health. Take care of my health, Side note on this health thing. My older kids, they still don't take care of their teeth. You'd think that they would learn. But growing up, I never made them. Mm-hmm. I didn't take care of my teeth. So why would it was one of them things where I'm like, go to bed and don't come out of your room. Not like, hey, let's do a bedtime routine, just go to bed. And now Jaden and Marcus and Wyatt, they, like, take care of their teeth. And, like, I bring them to the dentist every 6 months, and they have great teeth. And Jaden and Skylar still don't brush their teeth. Sorry, guys. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's really, my life and recovery, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one. A lot of people get into recovery, and obviously it problems everywhere. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about Because some people think you get in recovery and it's just all rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah.
No.
And, tell me a little bit about your worst, what's your worst time in recovery and what did you do to get through it? In other words, am I making sense?
Well, yeah, because everybody has bad days, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my bad days today are nothing compared to my bad days then. A couple things come to mind, I guess. A couple years ago, so my oldest son kind of went down the same path I did with drugs and whatever. And by the grace of God, his meth use was very short-lived compared to mine. And what had stopped it was I went to bed one night, I woke up, and I had this phone call or this text message from my son, Skylar, and he was telling me, Jaden's been shot twice. And I was like, my world just kind of fell apart at that moment. But this is what's so weird about it, is that I didn't cry because I had two little boys in the other room that were going to ask me why I was crying. And I didn't want them to know. You know what I mean? That's how I protected them today in so many ways. Like, before, I'd been like, oh my God, because that was who I was. I was this chaotic mess of a parent that there was no adult-child conversation, right? So I'm in my room, I'm reading this text message, and it was in the morning, I was getting ready for work, and Matt was in the bathroom, and he was like, what are you even talking about? Because he was like, didn't really, like, what happened, So I called both of them, Rayleigh and Skylar, and I got no answer. Or I think I got Rayleigh, and Rayleigh was like, yeah, he's in the hospital, he got shot, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what are you even saying to me right now?
Yeah.
Like, is he alive? Is he hurt? Where is he? So I, again, not opening my door because I don't want the boys to know what's going on, I call the hospital, and they have no record of where he is. They have no record. They do not say to me, your son is here. They say, we don't have a person by this name here. And I'm like, what do you even mean? Like, how do you handle that? What do you do, right? Without losing your mind, because you don't want anybody to know in the other room, because adult-child conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I drop the kids off at school, and I call again 3 or 4 times, nobody by that name here. Losing my crap at this time. Losing my shit. I go to work, okay, because I can't be at home. I can't storm the halls of the hospital, even though that's literally what I want to do.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? Where's my kid? Which then I would be in jail. So I go to work, which I knew that I was safe at work because this is the foundation that I have. And it was a Monday morning. I knew we were going to all get together, and I was going to be able to share what's going on with me, and then they be supportive to me, right? So I go into a meeting, 8 a.m. Monday morning. I tell them, like, hey, I don't really know what's going on, but I got these phone calls this morning. My son's been shot. And they're like, why are you here? And I'm like, because I don't know where he is. And I don't know what to do. And so my brother called me. My brother's a St. Cloud police officer. He called me, and he's like, hey, like, I can't really tell you much of anything. Just hold on. It's going to be okay. So shortly after that, the ICU called me and was like, hey, the reason why, and then my brother tells me the reason why they can't tell me anything is because they don't have the man in custody.
Oh, to go.
Yes, right? Gotcha. So if they tell me, right.
Mama bear.
Right. So ICU calls me, and they're like, hey, he keeps asking for his mom. He wants his mom. Will you come up here? Yes, of course I will. But you can't tell anybody where he is. Fine. I don't even care. So I go up there immediately. And I spend 3 days with him, and the ER doctor came up at one point and was like, your son's really lucky. So the bullet went in through a window. I went in through his left arm, out through his left arm, in through a pocket where his wallet was, where the money that he's stolen from the man that shot him was, that slowed down the bullet enough that when it hit his chest, just a bullet fragment went in his chest. This far from his heart. I mean, like, I still, and the ER's like, doctor was like, he's really lucky. Like, somebody's watching out for him. And I keep telling him, I've been telling my son for years, like, I'm pretty sure you have a 4-leaf clover shoved up your ass. Because literally things like that keep happening in his life, but somebody, his higher power has a better plan for him. And that's truly what it is, right? So I stay there with him for 3 days. I go home at night because, I made up a story to the boys, like, Jaden's been in an accident, because, like, how do I... And it's not really a story. It's just what you tell 7-year-olds,
Yeah.
or 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds at the time, because what else do you say, And in the meantime, I'm in this hospital room, and the people I reached out to were always there for me. Like, I had phone calls and text messages, and at the time I was trying to quit smoking, and Allison brings me a cigarette, and, like, immediately she's like, I got your back. I'll be right there, because that's what I needed at the time. But, like, I didn't have to do this alone. Like, even though my bad day was really bad, I didn't have to do it alone. And when I went to meetings and I went to talk about it, I didn't have to do it alone. Nothing I had to do alone, and I got through it. And I got through it without using, and I was able to get my son to treatment, and I was able to go to family day, and we were able to work through some stuff with that. And it was a gift in disguise, because that could have made him or broke him, right? Mm-hmm. It could have been like, I got shot, I'm cool. Or, oh my God, I literally almost lost my life.
Right.
What do I want for my life today? And his son was 4 or 5 months old at the time, So that was a really bad day in my life. But I got through it, because that's what we do, right?
Right.
Things happen, and bad days happen, and, like, I've had other bad days, but nothing you don't have to use to get over it or to get through it. My grandfather passed away. I didn't have to use. My dad had triple bypass surgery. I didn't have to use. My son got shot. I didn't have to use. I fought in court with my daughter for years, 3 years, to try to see her. I didn't have to use. I just don't have to use over it. Nothing. No matter what, I don't have to get high over it today.
So I got a question.
Yes.
So if there's people out there that, think they're too far gone, what would you say to them? Because you've been through the cycle a few times. And
you mean like them people that think that, well, I've already lost my kids. I'm a lost cause.
No reason to go on.
Too much shame, too much guilt.
You're never, ever, ever are you too far gone to find, your help, or to find what you need in your life to find recovery. I was 35 years old. I'm 43 years old today. I'm 29. And I literally thought that I had wasted my life, and now I'm going back to school. So you're never at a point where you're not worth recovery. Never.
And then what do you do? Well, who do you call? If you don't know what to do.
If you don't know what to do, and you're at a point where you're like, okay, now what do I do? Call somebody you know that doesn't use, and then ask for help. Or call the county and get a Rule 25, or call a treatment center. Now treatment centers all over are doing Rule 25s. Get a Rule 25. If you don't have any insurance, that's okay, because they'll help you through that paperwork. At your Rule 25 meeting, if you don't have insurance, they'll fill out the paperwork for you to get insurance to get you into treatment. And if you can't do that, go to an emergency room. Go to a detox. Go somewhere. Go to a meeting. There's meetings everywhere. Even through COVID, there's meetings, and ask for help. I guarantee you, if you walked into a meeting today and was like, I used yesterday and I don't want to use again, somebody is going to help you.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I have one question. So there's a lot of moms out there that they're stuck in the cycle that you talked about. They keep getting told no. They have a hole that every time they get, they've tried so many times and failed, and think that they're out of strikes. They can't get kids back, and so they're just caught up in this, either whether it be with men or just cycle of, I don't want to get told no again. I don't want, my kids are better off without me. You talked about that a lot. With Mary Beth, like, you tell me about all the no's that you got.
Oh God.
And how, with being told no and that bringing that shame and guilt back up, because it had to have come back up. How did you keep, like, what did you do? What tools did you use to keep going? And what would you say to those women right now that are like, what?
Well, it's never too late. It's never too late. And I gave birth to these children. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to stop being their mom. even if they call somebody else mom, I'm still their mom.
Mm-hmm.
They still forgive me. They still love me. You know, and even when I didn't know if they could love me anymore, they love me even more. And today I'm more in love with them and vice versa than I ever thought I could be. But what it boils down to is knowing that even though I got told no so many times, I was going to stay clean whether I had them or not. Because I knew that someday my kids would come and find me. And I knew that if I wasn't clean, I was just that. My son, Jaden, used to just tell his friends that my mom was just an effing junkie anyway. And I didn't want to be considered just that effing junkie. So I just wanted to stay clean because I knew someday they would come and find me. And that is really what it boils down to, that if you can't see him now, if you lost him through a TPR, if you lost him because your family won't let them see you, just keep fighting. Because even if you keep fighting and you get told no, eventually that fight is, somebody's going to see your fight. And that fight is going to matter. On paperwork, I have my fight. And my fight paid off. But even if it didn't, I wouldn't have stopped fighting. I would still be fighting to see her. Because she is worth that. I am worth that.
Yes.
I am worth that. Yeah. You just have to keep fighting. Even when you feel like you have no fight left. Women who have children in recovery are some of the strongest people I know.
Period.
Because
Hands down.
yes.
Yeah.
Because I was a single mom for so many years, and I wanted to be a better person, but I didn't know how. And so I just kept fighting. Like I just kept reaching out. I brought them into meetings. I did this, I did that. I did whatever I had to do, to be a better person. And now when they were really young, they had no idea how to act in a meeting. And I had no idea if they were a bother. And I remember an old timer going, "You're here, right? It doesn't matter because you're not in the dope house." And I was like, you're right. You're right. And that I deserved better, and that to always remain teachable. And so them are the things that kept bringing me back to this moment in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be okay. But when they were younger, they had no idea how to act. And then I started bringing their tablet. And now they're 8 and they just know how to act. And all I got to do is give them that look like, and they're like, "Oh, my mom sees me. Oh, man." But they just know, And the cool part is that their friends are there. So not only do they get excited to go, or I get excited to go, they get excited to go because their friends are there. Because they've grown up going to these things,
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's never too late. Even though you think 3 CPS cases, several times losing them, sitting in front of a judge having them tell me how crappy of a person I was, or a CPS worker, telling me, "Hey, you're never going to do this, figure it out," not really in that manner, but that's what I heard.
Yes.
Because that's what I wanted to hear, and here I am 8 years later, going to school, hopefully become a social worker. That's my goal. It seems so like I keep saying, this is what I want to do, instead of going, this is what I'm going to do. But because that's what I have to keep telling myself, and building an amazing, family and friends. And, I didn't see or speak to my brother. I spoke to my brother, but I couldn't go over to my brother's house for 4 years. In recovery, it took 4 years for them to be like, "My sister's okay." And called me and was like, "Come over for Christmas." And I was like, what do you mean? Literally, I was dumbfounded and my mom kept going, "Well, I don't even understand it anyway." And I'm like, "No, Mom, you don't have to understand it. Eventually it'll be okay." And now I have this amazing relationship with them. But they had to, on their time, figure it out because they needed to know I was going to be okay.
Yeah. Right.
4 years. And I waited. I never was like, "Oh, they don't deserve my relationship anyway." No, it was like, it'll be okay because look at what I put them through. Yeah.
The gifts of recovery.
Just keep coming. Literally.
Wow. That was an amazing story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough. Like I a couple times I'm like, pinch myself.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're thrilled. Thank you so much for coming and telling your story. And on that note, fight the good fight.
Keep it clean.